Hey everyone, hope everyone's doing well. I have completed now the upper level, had the blocks poured a couple days ago now, so they've cured and dried. It's been quite warm. I actually have gotten a tarp up over the wooden part. Hopefully that keeps the rain out. We will see. Probably won't work knowing my luck, but it could. I wanted to go ahead and give my final review on liteform. So I've had a few ups and downs with liteform. If you're watching my other videos, you know about those. I won't rehash any of those. But basically, I'll cut right to the chase. I think that liteform is a good block for a good price. It's probably not the best quality block as far as the manufacturing and the actual material. I don't know that for sure, but I'm gonna just kind of assume that from my research. And it may not be the best overall, as far as the economy of it. It may not be the best block for the price even, because this is the only block I've used. But from my personal experience, it's a good block for a good price. It does work. My biggest issues with it are the way it's packaged and transported. You lose a lot of tabs. Basically, if they don't package it perfectly, they kind of rub and jostle back and forth in the wind or in transportation. It just breaks a lot of tabs off. Is that a big issue? Does a lot of concrete leak out of it? Well, no, it's not really a big issue with that. It actually still works with the amount of tabs that are still left. But it's just, you got to flick those tabs off when you're stacking them, because if one's in a way, they won't, lock in properly. So you got to kind of always be cleaning off tabs. Another thing is they don't like the sun. So I said before, like this down here is filth, obviously, over the course of time. And I said it wasn't like sun, damage. It could be a little bit of sun damage. But this is what sun damage looks like that. And these upper levels where you see this yellow, because these were never, outside in the dirt or anything. These were just, exposed to the sun. And what happens when these blocks are exposed to the sun is they shrink. So they kind of deteriorate, I guess you would say, too, because you're not supposed to keep them out in the sun for, I think, more than a year. So you want to get, your whatever you're going to put on the outside of your walls and everything, you want to get that all done within a year, because they will continue to kind of deteriorate. Now, they're not going to fall apart. They're just going to the outside layer is going to kind of turn to a dust, and they are going to shrink a little bit. So you want to keep that in mind. That's my biggest two problems with it. I wish they had a little better information online. It's sold as a do-it-yourself block through do-it-yourself stores like Menards, big box stores. So I wish they had a little better information out there. From my experience, I didn't think it was that great. It seemed a little outdated in my opinion, but overall good block for a good price. So a few things I'll talk specifically on my pour if you're wondering. So if you watch my other videos, you know that I pre-installed my trusses and ledgers on my basement. That was kind of a new thing for me. I was trying to think outside the box. Since then, I've heard, some good feedback on this process. I think it may be something that gets used a little more as time goes on, where people actually pre-install their ledgers and their trusses before they actually pour the ICF walls. So that worked good for me in the basement. And I always knew up here, it was going to be a different story, because I knew I wasn't going to rent braces, and I knew I probably wasn't going to want to pay to buy a bunch of long lumber. A bunch of long straight lumber is even hard to find these days. So I knew I was going to be thinking outside the box a little bit on the upper story. I did order a couple extra trusses, and those gave me a couple opportunities, to kind of hold it in a couple places. Of course, you have the ends that kind of hold in position too. So that worked okay. But if you're thinking about making your own braces, I'm going to give you two pieces of advice. One, make sure your verticals go all the way to the top. So you're only supposed to have braces in here like once every 6 feet, and I think they're more like once every 4 feet through here. That's mostly because I originally was going to use much thinner material for my catwalk, or for my the walk board up here. So I was kind of putting them a little closer. So especially if they're every 6 feet apart, you want to make sure that these braces go to the top. Now, if you look at mine, these little stubs I added on was the bare minimum I could do. And those were like an afterthought. And if you don't do that, what's going to happen is there's nothing up at the top of this wall to control If it leans out, it's probably not going to lean in. It may, but if you think about it, you're up there working, walking on the catwalk, on the scaffolding, and leaning out against that wall with a bunch of concrete in it, it's going to want to start to lean out a little bit. So you want to make sure those verticals go all the way up. And when they go all the way up, that also gives you full control over that wall as far as the adjustment. Now, if you make your own braces, you really don't get a lot of adjustment. You basically set it up as close as you think it is to level, or you get it as close to level as you can and try to keep it there. And then when you do your pour, you could come back and tweak every one of these, taking out 5 or 6 screws and moving it in or out, but that's a lot of work. You can do it, but my recommendation is if you want perfectly straight walls, and what I mean by perfectly straight walls, like somebody like Dirt Perfect does ICF videos, they make perfectly straight walls, okay? They use the adjustable braces, they lean it in a little bit before they pour, then they pour it, then they go through with a string line up top, and then they adjust every turnbuckle to make that wall perfectly straight. I mean, it's a thing of beauty, really. It's about as close to perfect house as I think I've ever seen. So when you do your own braces, though, you're going to have to be willing to compromise. It may not be a perfectly straight line. I did pretty good, and I got lucky because it could have went bad not having my verticals all the way to the top. And it really wasn't, I really didn't put much thought into that till after I did the pour and after I had thought about it, because I actually did lean my walls in slightly before I even started. I figured it'd be better for them to lean in than out. So I kind of made those stubs to where they pulled the tops in just a little bit. Like when I say a little bit, I'm talking like a 1/16 of an inch, just a little bit, just where it was leaning more towards the inside than the outside. And they ended up settling, they're not in that same position. They lean back just a little bit. So they lean back to level. So, or even maybe in some places just a hair, back a little bit. So overall, for the way I did it, and the money that I saved on not getting scaffolding, or professional scaffolding or renting scaffolding. Now, if you can do this quickly, you can still rent scaffolding. The reason I didn't do it is because I get in these situations, it's just me and my family, and we might get started on something and then it's a month before we can get back to it because of whatever reason. Things are always coming up, in life. So you want to, if you're going to rent bracing, you need to do it in a timely manner so that you're not paying, for a lot of renting time. So you can definitely rent the bracing to make it, more cost efficient. Another thing I want to throw out there, and I've talked about this before, this foam. I think it's great stuff foam. You can see there's a big fat layer there. So I had this issue from my mistakes down in the basement where I had this gap that I needed to fix, and it was just in my basement part. Basically, as you can see, it should be up a little higher. Now I knew it wasn't going to be perfect, and I did plan on trimming a block anyways, but it ended up being this minute difference of like an inch or so that I just questioned, can I just foam it like it's a seam? Now I talked to Liteform and they didn't really encourage doing this, but it worked. So this foam, it's all nasty and orange and yellow now. And I was very worried during the pour that it would just blow out of those foam cracks, but it didn't, it worked. So that great stuff foam adhesive spray is amazing. So if you're doing ICF, definitely look into the different adhesives. Don't just go and buy the cheapest foam can you can, because some of these foam manufacturers, like Great Stuff, are making some pretty cool stuff. Like, I don't just use this for the foam blocks anymore, now that I know about it. So other than that, that's my only real tips I have. I guess one other thing is when you're doing your windows, make sure you have your cutouts in there. Make sure the person that's helping you knows the importance of the windows and making sure that they get, filled so you don't have voids in here. Make sure they know, my son and we had a family friend come help. So it wasn't an ideal situation, but they did a great job. Like, they were tapping on the walls to know that the concrete was filling with, concrete and there was no voids. And they just basically followed me around as I was dropping the concrete in. And then they were also vibrating it. We didn't have any blowouts. And the only reason I laugh is we did kind of have a blowout. Here where this window bucking is, I knew I had to extend the window bucking down lower, and I just didn't do it. And you probably can't even see that, but down there in the bottom, there's like a board that's screwed in there. Anyways, there was like 6 inches on the bottom of that buck. And luckily I had my wife out there looking for blowouts, and she had a megaphone and she was yelling at us, you know, there's just concrete. And basically the concrete was coming straight out of the pump truck, straight down the wall and straight out that hole and straight down to the ground. It was actually starting to go into our basement a little bit. But that was at the very beginning. That was how it all started. So after we started like that, I thought for sure it wasn't going to be a good day. But after that, that was the last problem. Everything went smooth. Everything held. Even with this homemade bracing, even with big gaps of foam, even with not enough full vertical support, probably not enough peak support up in the peaks. There could have been some better support up there. But everything looks really good. I'm very pleased with it. My family's very happy. We've worked very hard for this, and it's nice to see like something that kind of looks like a house. So with that, I think that's a good place to end. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them below. Any comments, anything like that. Like I said, this is just my situation. This is my experience. I'm not trying to say this is like some new way to do it to save money. This is just how I did it. And I'll definitely try to be open with any mistakes I make or, you know, issues I have, so that people don't think that this is what I'm trying to actually promote. This is just how I'm doing it. So with that, hope everyone has a good day and good luck on your adventures.